Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into something absolutely massive. We're looking at one of the greatest technological leaps in human history, the invention of the airplane. You know, the story of aviation is a lot more than just a timeline. It's really the ultimate triumph of power-to-weight ratios and fluid dynamics over the very stubborn force of gravity. So let's jump right in and see how this monumental shift from the ground to the sky actually happened.
Put yourself in the shoes of our ancestors for a second. For as long as humans have watched birds sweep across the sky, we've looked up and asked ourselves, what if we could fly too? That intense curiosity drove generations of early heroes to take some, incredibly daring and often misguided risks. People would literally strap on makeshift feathered wings and leap from high towers trying to mimic biological flight. This whole obsession with ornithopters, machines with flapping wings, was noble for sure, but aerodynamically, it was doomed. And unfortunately, it usually ended in absolute disaster. But even with all those failures, that relentless drive to conquer the sky just wouldn't quit.
Section 1. The Ancient Dream of Flight. Ideas Before Engines. Skipping ahead to the 15th century, you've got the brilliant Leonardo da Vinci sketching out rotorcraft and gliders. Incredible designs, but they fundamentally lacked a viable power source. Fast forward a bit to 1783, and humans finally leave the ground. The Montgolfier brothers in France managed to harness buoyancy for the very first manned hot air balloon flight. But the real paradigm shift, that didn't happen until the 1850s. A British engineer named Sir George Cayley totally revolutionized our understanding of aerodynamics. He separated the concepts of lift and thrust, essentially identifying the four vector forces of flight for the first time. And by 1853, one of his fixed-wing gliders actually flew a passenger across a small valley.
But here we hit the core engineering bottleneck. It was basically buoyancy versus aerodynamics. As you can see here, a hot air balloon gave you immediate lift, sure, but it left the pilot entirely at the mercy of the wind. You just drifted wherever it blew. Early gliders, on the other hand, give us a glimpse of directional travel and fixed-wing aerodynamics, but they completely lack the sustained thrust you need for continuous flight. So floating was easy, but steering and actually powering that flight, that remained a very distant dream.
Section 2. The Glider King's Sacrifice, the High Stakes of Early Aviation. Now, to bridge that massive gap between just drifting and actually flying, early pioneers literally had to put their lives on the line for real-world data. Enter Otto Lilienthal in the 1890s. This German engineer completely earned his title as the Glider King. He was incredibly methodical. He tested cambered, or curved wings, and he used weight shift control to actively manipulate the center of gravity while he was in the air. By completing thousands of documented glider flights, he laid the exact, literal aerodynamic foundation needed for modern fixed-wing aircraft.
But that essential, rigorous testing came at the highest possible cost. In 1896, following an aerodynamic stall, Lilienthal suffered a fatal glider crash. His final words were, "Sacrifices must be made." It's a pretty somber reminder of the genuine physical dangers these pioneers faced, just to unlock the physics of the sky for the rest of humanity.
Section 3. The Wright brothers take off, from bicycles to biplanes.
Lilienthal was gone, but his research actually made its way across the ocean to two bicycle mechanics in Dayton, Ohio, Orville and Wilbur Wright. Now, what's really interesting here is how their day job played into this. Building bicycles taught them a critical lesson. An inherently unstable vehicle can actually be controlled through practice and active balance. Armed with just relentless curiosity over formal science, they built a homemade wind tunnel to meticulously test different aerodynamic profiles. And ultimately, they figured out what everyone else had missed. They developed a method called wing warping, which allowed for active roll control. This finally gave them that elusive three-axis control: pitch, roll, and yaw.
So on a cold, windy morning, December 17, 1903, out in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, they married this aerodynamic control with a custom-built, lightweight cast aluminum internal combustion engine. Orville Wright lifted off. Look at these numbers for a second. The flight lasted just 12 seconds, and it covered a mere 120 feet, over in a blink. But the poetic contrast of those tiny numbers, absolutely world-changing. The fundamental code of powered, controlled flight was officially cracked.
Section 4. The Modern Era of Flight, the Rapid Acceleration of Aviation.
This is where our story really takes off. The moment the Wright brothers proved powered flight was possible in 1903, technological progress didn't just walk forward, it literally sprinted. And this rapid post-1903 evolution is the true focal point of modern aviation. During World War I, barely a decade after Kitty Hawk, airplanes rapidly morphed from fragile wooden flyers into structurally vital tools. But the engineering totally exploded during the interwar period. We moved away from wood and canvas to stress-skin aluminum monocoque structures, giving planes drastically more strength while minimizing weight. By the time Charles Lindbergh flew solo across the Atlantic in 1927 and commercial planes started crossing continents in the 1930s, engineers had developed pressurized cabins, letting planes fly higher and completely above turbulent weather. And this relentless innovation soon triggered the ultimate paradigm shift, the mid-20th century leap from propellers to the jet turbine engine, a revolution that shattered speed limits and permanently shrank the globe.
The modern impact of this insane post-1903 acceleration is staggering. It relies on highly advanced systems that grew directly from those early milestones. The exact same fundamental three-axis control the Wright brothers invented is now seamlessly managed by ultra-sophisticated fly-by-wire flight computers. Today, we rely on global GPS logistics to deliver life-saving aid across the world. We defend nations with supersonic capabilities, and we instantly connect billions of people. It's wild to think that behind every massive commercial jumbo jet is an impossible dream that started with feathers, sketches, and 12 short seconds on a windy beach.
Okay, before we wrap up, I've got a quick, fun piece of trivia for you, a little palate cleanser that connects centuries of brilliant engineering to something you can actually see on your next flight. Have you ever noticed that tiny little hole in the airplane window? It's called a bleed hole. It meticulously regulates the air pressure between the inner and outer acrylic panes. This ensures the window's structural integrity isn't compromised under the immense atmospheric forces of flight, while simultaneously keeping it from fogging up. It's just a tiny, perfect technical detail born from over a century of testing.
So, what does this all mean? We end with this provocative question: will the human spirit of invention ever stay grounded? The invention of the airplane isn't just a story about wood, aluminum, and fluid dynamics. At its core, it is a story of the human spirit, a spirit that flat out refuses to stay tethered to the ground when the open sky is waiting. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep looking up and keep exploring.